All right. I will kick things off here. Again, my name is Maya. I lead marketing at Puros, and I have been in B2B for B2B venture tech for about 15 years. The majority of that has been in AEC. I started my career at Bluebeam and I fell in love with this industry. And I am like very, very excited to be here at Puros now. And yeah, I'm based in LA. I have 3 small children and just kind of making it day by day. So, Talar, tell us a little bit about you.
Okay. Hey, everyone. I know a few of you guys from the chat, so great to see you again and great to meet everyone. I'm Talar. I lead customer success and implementation here at Puros, and I've been with Puros since almost the very start. So I've really seen how it's grown, how it's changed, and kind of helped our industry and all of our customers get into it and update with all of our updates as well. I actually used to work in architecture, so I'm like lead AP Homes certified. I went through architecture school, undergrad and graduate, and worked in the field for around 5 years before I joined Puros. So really in the industry, love the entire AEC industry as a whole, and just hoping to make it better with AI softwares and all of the developments that are coming up over the next few years. So.
Awesome, awesome. Talar, what made you make the switch?
Well, it's really interesting kind of seeing it from this side of things and really seeing it from an implementation and kind of I'd like to say we're slightly BIM managers here at Puros, so at least on the customer success side of things, we really see the ins and outs of how BIM management works across many different firms. And so, yeah, it's really interesting trying to see it from this side of things compared to like day-to-day project work.
Yeah, for sure. Amazing. All right. Well, guys, let us know if you are, having trouble hearing us or if it sounds scratchy or granulated. Give us that feedback, okay? And we will continue on here. And let's see here. So, Talar, how many, like, give us like a rough ballpark number of how many firms you've been working with to really onboard and implement Puros with, just for like kind of understanding the context you're bringing to the conversation.
Yeah, so I've probably helped onboard close to 400 firms into the Puros platform myself over the past 5 years, I would say.
Mm, nice. Okay. So that's a big group, and that's mostly architectural firms, engineering firms. Talar, give us a sense of that mix.
Yeah, it's pretty 50-50 split between architecture firms and engineering folks, as well as multidisciplinary firms.
Mhm.
So it's really across the board.
Cool, cool. And I think what I have heard and seen from the work that you and your team are doing is that implementation and adoption is the kind of make it or break it. In this kind of world right now, it's very easy to buy software. It's very easy to buy AI software. It's very hard to operationalize it. It's very hard to implement it. And so I feel like this kind of enablement gap is what firms should be looking to solve for right now, because if they truly can operationalize these newer softwares out there like Puros, that can become their competitive advantage if they can operationalize that correctly. So we you know we kind of saw this pattern, and we saw it repeated over and over and over again of, hey, look, yeah, we need more implementation support. The previous tools we were working with, the previous ways of doing it weren't working for us. And so we took these patterns and we said, well, there's really something here. There's really a lot here. And so we leaned into it, and we're very aligned with a lot of other forces happening in the industry right now. We were at AU last year in 2025, and after that conference in September, I think they released the State of Design and Make report. If you guys haven't checked that out, it's always a good annual report from Autodesk. They are our partners over there. We integrate directly into Autodesk as a developer partner with them, with Revit. And what that report says is that firms are reporting increased productivity from software and AI tools out there, yet they feel less prepared for weathering unforeseen changes in the coming years. They feel less prepared. They also are divesting in training programs. There's less investment in training programs year over year, 2024 to 2025, and only around 60 some percent, maybe only roughly around 60% of organizations now surveyed in the Design and Make report actually have continuous learning programs. And so at the same time, software proliferation is happening. It's easier to buy than ever before. And there's less investment, less resourcing on the enablement side. So everybody here, are you guys feeling that? You guys are the ones on the front lines. You guys are really the ones who are doing this work, especially on the BIM management side. Is this a gap that you're feeling as well? I'm so curious to know. Type in the chat here. Yes, yeah, okay, yeah. So let's I do want to know, I'm gonna do a poll here for us, because let's get clear on like what does your firm's typical software training look like right now? Let's get like a baseline here. Let's see. Yep, absolutely. Good. All right. All right, what does your firm's typical software training look like? Structured program with scheduled sessions and follow-ups. Looks like the ideal, but not a majority here. Let's see, a vendor demo, and then we figure it out. Pretty common, I'm sure. A single lunch and learn session, a PDF someone emailed 6 months ago. Oh man, oof. Wait, are you guys getting training? Okay, so I'm really happy to see like actually a good amount of people with a structured program, scheduled sessions and follow-ups. That's excellent. The vendor demo and then figure it out, less excellent. I'm sure you guys feel the consequences of that. Talar, as these responses come in, give us a sense of like how you define the differences between like training versus enablement.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's very easy to just say like, oh, let's slap on a training, a lunch and learn session at the end of the month for the team to kind of just get an introduction to a software like Piros or any other software as well. It's more difficult to actually enable a good information learning session with the entire group. So I'd say people love these lunch and learn sessions because it's just a free hour that we can take and just like teach everyone how to do something, but it's not necessarily that they're gathering the information as well. So it's trying to enable them with like a pre-info session, before this lunch and learn, before any training and scheduled sessions that we do, like what are we even doing here? Give them a little bit, like give them that PDF that explains why we're here, what we're trying to accomplish, and then here are the outlined 3 or 4 sessions that we'll do afterwards to help everyone get trained on the platform. And here's what we'll do after those sessions to actually see if everything is working out and everything's getting enabled correctly into our current workflows. So it's not as easy as just saying, okay, let's schedule a training and be done with it. But even that's difficult to do with some firms as well. Actually, scheduling the time for a training is sometimes difficult, which is understandable too.
Yeah, that's very understandable. And something that we'll touch on, I think, a little bit later is that tension, right? Like we need time for training and adoption and meaningful workflow development between your firm and your software vendor. But at the same time, you feel so much pressure about maximizing those billable hours and faster production cycles, right? So we'll talk a little bit about that tension too. So let's see. I am curious to know one more poll here before we move on, and we'll talk about really we'll talk about some frameworks here. I want to understand what do you all think? You guys have taken the time out of your days to be here right now. What do you believe is actually really stopping new software from sticking at your firms? Let's see. So this poll should be coming up right now. Excellent. All right, we have a comment here that says, my current firm expected all tools and softwares to be common knowledge for all staff. They do not invest in training or resources for tools we use. I wonder, where does your firm expect that your staff learns these tools from? A lot of these tools are next generation AI tools. A lot of these tools are not yet taught in formal architectural programs. Expected to learn it yourself outside of work. Oh yeah, you guys got the time for that, for sure. All right, so what's really stopping software from sticking at your firm? We're too busy doing the work. 100%. Yeah. All right. So let's close that one out and let's talk about what we've seen in real life. So let's talk about Talar and your experience here. You know, you've seen hundreds and hundreds of rollouts, as you said, across the sector. And we know that firms are cutting back on training, or in this case, you know, as Brian says, they don't have training at all. And so what are you seeing, Talar? Tell us about what the primary biggest burdens are.
Yeah, I think in general it does fall on both sides, like the software vendor and the actual buyer or the firm as well. So as a software vendor, it's no one feels good about just taking someone's money and then walking away and never hearing from them again until you have to come back and like take their money again. It's really not a good feeling, I would say, at least from what I would expect. So what we try to do here at Pierce is really provide a dedicated resource on our side for each firm, no matter the size, so that they know that, okay, they have a person here that is responsible for them whenever new updates come out with Puros or just with help making sure that certain workflows are embedded into their current workflows for the staff. And so, one, it falls on the software side to actually provide those resources to the customers. And then it also falls on the customer side to actually do something with those resources and devote the time and energy to getting those resources out to the rest of their team and kind of act as that middleman for passing the information along and also training everyone on their side. So I'd say it's really like it's difficult to just say like, okay, we have one design tech manager who is leading the Puros implementation, and that's our guy, and that's it at the firm. If you have questions, you go to him or you go to her. But it really extends farther from that of if you are a larger firm, obviously you need some guys at the top who are bought into the plan with any new software, but also you need your kind of on the ground level folks who are actually making it come to fruition, because those are the folks who actually know what the current day to day looks like for each of their team members and how implementing a new software into their day to day would actually function. So you do need a few members across a firm to really build in a new software into their current workflows and actually get the full value from it. You can't just buy it and say, okay, Claire, you're responsible for this. And if it doesn't get implemented correctly, then it's your loss and we're not going to do anything with it the next year. So it really needs like a few folks at the firm to push it along and make sure that it's getting implemented into the exact workflows for the day-to-day staff members.
How much support do you all here feel like you actually have from the vendors in your tech stack right now? Do you feel like they build these workflows, develop these training plans with you, and support you throughout adoption? do you feel like it's like a one and done, they leave you after the contract is signed? What's kind of like on that spectrum? What are you guys seeing from other vendors out there? 50-50. Yeah, okay. All right. So let's see. I am curious to know as well. It obviously should be a partnership, as Talara is talking about, between the vendor and the firm, and it needs to be multiple layers of partnerships within the firm, leadership, management, users. But when a new tool essentially fails or dies at your firm, right? I do want to understand who is left holding the bag for that. Like kind of uh what is where is the blame there for that? And I want to explore that just a little bit. So that poll should be up. So when a new tool dies, what is usually on the headstone? Aha, I never really had a plan. Lost to the deadlines of just normal work. Yeah. Seemed great in the demo. Mm-hmm. All right, cool. Let's see what else we got. Let's see. Rachel says dead tools rarely have good plan frameworks in place to support them, or the single champion of the tool leaves and no one else steps up. We see that a lot, like tribal knowledge, right? Or like really that's kind of it's a terrible term for it, but like just knowledge being trapped in one person's head, and that person, whether they're a champion or they are a power user, they leave, and where does that go? So let's close this poll out. Let's talk about the practical things that you guys can do here. So let's see. The framework. This has been honed by Talar, by her team of people over hundreds of rollouts. And so we want to dive deep because you guys are all here today to get some actionable advice on what you can do. So Talar, do you want to start to talk about step one there? And these aren't really steps, these are like guidelines, right? Think of these as like lessons learned. So what do we mean, Talar, when we say start small and enforce deeply?
Yeah. So I think buying a new software outside of Puros and with Puros, it's really beneficial to like get it all set up to whatever that leader thinks is the best way to set everything up, and then share that with a few folks at the firm or a few team members to get their feedback and get their thoughts. So it really can't just be one person who's leading the forefront, just like Rachel's saying here, if one person leaves, then that tool kind of dies with them. So getting that one person to build it up as much as they think is good to go, and then introducing it to a smaller group and developing more feedback and kind of buy-in from them so that they feel like they've also had a hand in building this out for the rest of the entire firm. So starting small with actually implementing to a smaller group, setting some deadlines, some timelines to say like, okay, test this out in an active kind of project flow in your day-to-day, and provide some feedback before we introduce this to the rest of the firm. So it's kind of testing things out, seeing what sticks, going back, changing it if it doesn't work, and then trying again, really.
This may surprise some people or maybe counterintuitive, right? I think like, people want to roll out to the entire firm all at once. All of you as like very busy professionals have different initiatives constantly that you are working on. You want to close out this one and start the next. And so this one, may surprise some people to start small rather than broad. And this is, I think, about chasing perfection. Is that what this is about, Talar?
I would say so, or just trying to like get something done as quickly as
Yeah.
possible so that you
Right.
can go on to the next software, go on to the next initiatives, because obviously there's so much that we are all trying to push along within a firm as well. Um, but I think it really is trying to do it well and do it right the first time, but again, being timely with it. So I would never suggest taking the entire year to like evaluate a software if it's not necessary. And for most softwares, it's not necessary to take that long, but taking a good month or two to actually evaluate, okay, we've set it up, now we're testing it. Let's see how it works, what the feedback is from these 10 team members. Go back, change things up, and then roll out to the rest of the staff. I think it's worth taking those extra few weeks to just ensure that, so that once you introduce this to the very end users, they know that this has been flushed out. The team has thought about my day to day, and they've tried to like adjust this to be good for my day to day work, so that I can use this moving forward.
Good. How do you, Talar, how do you encourage your firms to set clear expectations during this small testing time period up front?
It's very important, I would say, to find the right people who are actively in project phases that the software would be used for. So for
Mhm.
Puros, it's very important to find people who are currently in DDs and CDs who are needing details, needing content for their projects in order for them to actually see the value of the tool while they're actually day to day working.
Mm.
If you just give this to 10 people who, if you give it to like the leadership principals at the highest level and say, oh, test this out for 2 weeks, most likely they're not going to have the feedback that will provide better insights to the BIM manager or the guy leading the implementation. So you do need to kind of roll this out to folks who would use it immediately when they start and then gather the feedback there.
Mhm. Yeah, this is a good comment. Let's see. If a few people get good at it and then demonstrate that it works well, others will adopt. Yep, a little bit of FOMO strategy there. If it's just rolled out right away, a few highly visible issues can undermine the entire rollout by making people feel it's not worth adopting. That's spot on. Talara, have you seen that?
Definitely, yeah. It's like if we roll out at a bad time in the month where certain things are like there are no projects in DDs, CDs, no one's going to use it for like a month or two, a few weeks, and then they're not going to see the benefits of it. They're going to forget about it afterwards. But also, if you roll out with, in Puros's case, like a half-baked library where you're still uploading content, you're still filling in guidelines and filters for everyone, people are going to think that this is still a half-baked tool, and they're not going to completely adopt it until they do use it. So
Yeah. Okay, so let's see. Let us know, guys, any questions about what that really means, right? Start small and force deeply. Let's see, another comment. Key users start using it and setting guidelines with little or no understanding of what the problem the company. Yeah, that's, yeah. All right. So let's see. Designing workflows before training. So let's talk about what we mean because training is can be defined in many ways. Uh, Training is somebody showing up, teaching them where to click a button. That is very different than intentionally sitting down to design workflows up front. So, Talar, tell us a little bit about what you've seen here.
mhm. I mean, it really is. We at Puros try to help in designing specific workflows for the team in different areas. So, like, how are BIM managers interacting with the platform? How are project managers interacting? How are day to day designers interacting with the platform as well? So, we try to kind of give you all of the different roles that we think are going to interact with our software differently, and then outline some specific flows that we think work best based off what we've seen. And then you have the power to obviously design that according to your firm, because every firm is different. There are specific things that we don't know of completely. So you need to actually outline that out and then share that somewhere where people can actually find it and use it for this information gathering when using a new software. So building out like what is each person at this firm, each of the different roles, how are they interacting with this? And let me write that out and share it with the entire staff once we roll this out as well.
Hmm. It's really interesting. I don't know if anybody here, there's probably a lot of crossover between what you all do and technology, obviously. So any kind of like product managers or product management experience in the group, maybe you've heard of jobs to be done, right? In a way, this reminds me of saying, okay, up front before the rollout, intentionally sitting down and saying, for this user, the job that they need this software to do is X, Y, and Z. For this user, the job is this, and defining workflows accordingly. Is that something that you guys are already doing? And if so, how is it working out? Let us know. I'd love to hear from all of you, all you guys with some great comments here. That's good. So that's what we mean by starting small and forcing deeply, designing workflows before training. Okay, Talar, tell us what we mean by enabling in the flow of real work, real projects, real design phases.
Yeah, so it's really back to whoever you're testing with and when you're rolling out a software, just figuring out what is the good timing to roll this out. And really having that in your mind as the implementation lead at a firm before you even begin adopting and implementing the software. So, like, okay, what is our goal? Like, when is the best time that we will go in and kind of roll this out to our initial group and to the later group? And try to outline that out internally before you actually start buying the software. So, we've seen it here as well. Once you buy a software, people think it's done and it will just implement itself basically, but we need a plan. And unfortunately, the software vendor can only go so far in implementing that plan. You also have to come in at the firm level and say, like, okay, this is how it's going to work. This is our timeline within our firm for the next few months, and this is how we're going to implement this over the next few months. So, really deciding that in accordance with all of the other initiatives going on at the firm and all of the other projects people are working on. So,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Tom actually asked a pretty good question here in the Q&A. Pretty basic question. He asks, are we here at Puro selling software or are we selling services to help enable and train on existing softwares? Very good question. We sell software, and with that software, you get Talar and her amazing team. We have sold so many firms on our software over the few years here that we've really been like quickly developing and iterating, that we've learned that what happens after the contract is signed is just as important in terms of what the vendor can offer. And so at Puros, we've built that into our offering. So we are selling software, but the way that we define software is inclusive of this real success partnership that she and I are talking about right now. So I hope that clarifies that for you. So let's see. Talar, back to enabling in the flow of real work. Let's just talk about super practical example. Like what does an enablement session actually look like when it's done inside a live project? And how is that different than a lunch and learn?
mhm. So I always encourage, especially when training staff members, to not do a presentation based training for anything. If you're doing a presentation based introduction to the software, that's different. You can do like a 5 minute, 10-minute introduction saying, hey, this is what we've invested in. This is how we're going to roll it out. This is what it does, just giving like key features. But actually training the team on this, it should be really done actively and more in a conversational setting. And so that means people have their computers with them, they're inside the software, they have logins, they have everything ready to go, especially when we have Revit involved. I'm sure all of you know working with Revit is a whole different ball game with plugins as well. So making sure that they have their plugins installed, everything's good to go so that they can immediately start using it while we're in the training sessions and in the info sessions. So that's really the need there rather than just saying, okay, we're having this 1 hour session. You guys are going to eat some pizza, have some lunch while we talk about this. It's not really going to get you the most bang for your buck when they're not actively being tasked with saying, okay, let's go in, let's view a detail. Does someone see something wrong with this detail? Let's talk through it all together and actually go through the steps of like, how would you interact with this day to day?
Yes. Yeah. What have your best enablement sessions looked like. If you guys want to share or tell us, that would be something really helpful for everyone here too. And how did you incentivize people to show up? Is pizza enough? um, okay, so um, let's see. Yeah, some good comments here. Okay, so what about keeping momentum visible? This is a huge thing as well. I always say that, half of your job in any role that you ever have is telling other people about that job and why it matters. And so, Talar, tell us how to keep this momentum very visible. Because, of course, if we're investing in this, if your firms are investing in this, we have to see that return on investment and early quick wins.
Mhm. Yeah. So I think at least here at Puros, the way we kind of make everything visible for the team and leadership for like how much are your software and your investments getting valued across the team is we actually start to put numbers like time saved, dollars saved to all of the actions that we're seeing within the platform. So it doesn't really matter how many times someone is coming into the system and just like searching in the library and kind of clicking around doing what they do, but it's more so like, okay, they've downloaded 50 details into a project model. In addition to this, there's 5 other active projects getting use out of the platform over the last week. How can we equate this to time saved versus the other way around if you didn't have a library that people were going to and referencing? So we put really time saved, dollars saved to all of these metrics rather than just saying, okay, like everyone's using it. You're happy, right? Let's go. So,
How do you suggest, Talar, that those metrics are shared with the broader organization? Who do you share those metrics with? How do you share them, and how often?
mhm. I mean, me and my team, we do quarterly meetings with our folks, even in years down the line once the software is still implemented. And those meetings really look like here are some new features that we've developed and how your workflows could be benefited from these features, as well as here are the metrics that we've seen across the board. So we do those quarterly meetings with more of the leadership folks just to make sure that they are seeing the benefits and the value from the platform and able to get more value as we create more uh, valuable workflows within Puros. But also, in addition to that, we send out just monthly analytics for all of the admin group members within the Puros system. And those analytics really look at time saved according to what has been done in the platform over the last month.
Mm-hmm. And then it's, I think what we would encourage all of you in your roles on the kind of administrative side, not the, well, the BIM management design technology leadership side versus the project side, um, to translate those savings and that usage of your tools to why that matters to your bosses, and however or to that matters to your leadership. So whether that is in dollars saved that then you can translate to recovered billable opportunity, right? Translate that into what matters most to your leadership. That's very much laddering up to the overall problem that software is supposed to solve for your firm in the first place. All right, so let's talk about centralization. Man, we see a lot of decentralization and fragmentation just in the nature of how all of our customer firms here at Puros are structured. We see a lot of teams that are now popping up all over different offices, right? More distributed teams. Really, COVID and the pandemic era gave us the ability, forced the ability for remote to happen, for remote distributed work to happen in different ways. And so now we're dealing with teams and projects and data across continents, across tools. Talar, tell us why centralization is so important and how centralization plays a role in successful adoption of softwares.
Yeah, so I would say this is something I saw within the industry when I was just a designer coming in. And My family also worked in structural engineering when I was growing up, so I saw this with them as well, working inside of a small
Mhm,
structural engineering firm in LA. Basically, our industry, unless you have kind of design technology experts who span across all the offices, all the sectors and segments, and try to centralize all the knowledge, at the end of the day, the larger and larger you get, if you don't have that, you're still acting like smaller offices, and each office does their own thing, no matter um, what the project is, the drawing set that we're delivering is going to be different depending on who worked on it, what office worked on it, who was the manager, and so on. And that's not really sustainable or consistent for the firm. And so trying to centralize all of the knowledge that every single team member looks at and references in one place is really beneficial, because then you start to see more and more consistency across the board when it comes to what you're delivering out to your clients. And so what we've seen at Puros, I've seen firms where everything is very consistent. No matter how many offices there are, people know to reference a single source of truth, as well as other project documents if needed. And I've seen it the other way around, where every single person is referencing what they know. And it's that institutional knowledge that doesn't get passed on across the person saying, like, beyond the person sitting next to you. So trying to centralize and having one source where everyone is referencing, and trying to organize that so it is referenceable and actually learnable for an average person coming in new to the firm. And so doing that centralization is really going to kickstart and ramp up new hires as easy as possible, which is
mhm,
really what we need to do as well in this new era of AI. We need to be able to just get everyone up to the same place as quickly as possible with the same knowledge sources, rather than needing to go in like one on one, make sure everyone's trained um, on an independent basis, I would say.
mhm. Yeah, very good. Okay, so really the last kind of big lesson that we've learned across our experiences is that enablement really needs to be ongoing. It's kind of an obvious thing, but when so many firms and vendors are just kind of one and done, it's still a big issue. So, Talar, tell us a little bit more about this.
Yeah. So it is a issue on, again, the vendor side and the firm internal team side, but specifically for vendors, it really is difficult when it's just like, okay, we offer one training for the entire team, and then after that, you can figure it out yourself. And that's very difficult. And I've seen that internally with softwares that we implement here at Puros for my teams as well. It's
Mm,
very difficult when I don't have someone with the software to ask my questions, to actually learn how to best do this and make sure it's implemented into each of my workflows, especially in the area of AI where everything is changing so
mhm,
much. So you do need that ongoing enablement to make sure that, like, okay, as days change, as projects change, as our workflows change, how are these softwares getting used and getting changed alongside those workflow changes? And that's
mm,
something that we really value here at Puros on the success team, as well as the entire team at Puros, to just make sure that all of our customers, all of the firms that use the platform, are getting continuously taught and enabled on how to use it to the best of its ability and their ability.
mhm. So we have a firm that we have worked with for a good amount of time, called Lake Flado, and they are awesome. We love working with this team, and they are a great example of what we mean when we say kind of ongoing enablement. Chalar, do you want to tell us a little bit about the beginning with Lake Flado and how they really kind of approached their rollout?
Yeah, so they dove in headfirst for trying to see if Puros was a good fit for their entire team. And the way they did this was they had a very structured plan in place to say, okay, we're going to spend 1 month evaluating the platform, spend the first few days actually inputting all of our data so that everything's set up. And then we're going to introduce this to a few teams within our industry, within our firm, sorry, to actually use Puros for the current projects that they're working on. So they spent a month trying to actually use Puros on the current jobs that were actively needing details, needing content for their work. And then they decide that, yes, actually, from this last month, we've seen this amount of cost savings and time savings when using the Puros platform. So without Puros, it would have taken us 10 hours to find a set of details for this new job. But with Puros, it took us 5 minutes, 20 minutes to find this. So they really tried to enable this within an active job and within one group before they said that, yes, this is a good go ahead and we should just introduce this to our entire staff afterwards.
Hmm. So tell us a little bit about why this stuck here uniquely.
Yeah. So the team that was actually using the platform at that time, who had access to it, they were very much like heavily in the detailing phase for their projects. And so they were heavily using Puros during that kind of testing period. And so they really saw the benefits of it and the value of it immediately once it was introduced. And then it got to a point where the people next to them, the other people on their teams that didn't have access to it were like, why do you have access? Why don't I have access? Can I get access to this for my next project? So it's kind of developing that FOMO within the firm as well, but being able to actually see the value of a software when it's actually getting used, when it needs to be used the most, and testing it out then before you introduce it to everyone else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, good example here. Okay, so as we wrap up, I do want to touch on that kind of tension, we talked about earlier of, hey, look, we have a lot of pressure to maximize the hours that we bill back to projects. How do we balance tool administration, tool adoption, tool optimization with that? I'm curious how all of you balance that. I'm also curious, Talar, about what you are finding as well.
Yeah.
So let's see. I feel like I hear actually maybe a first good question would be, do you have to have a dedicated BIM manager or design technologist to have a successful software rollout?
In my opinion, not necessarily,
Mm.
but you do need a lead person for a software at the firm. So it cannot just be, okay, we bought this and then we'll figure out 4 or 5 people who don't have as much project work over the next month who will get it set up and implement it. That's more difficult, but I'd say trying to have a lead within each software for at least getting it set up and implemented in the first few months is really beneficial, and it provides immediate success, I would say, compared to just buying it and then trying to figure out who's going to do what afterwards. Because then it's just you spend a few weeks trying to decide who's really doing what within the software, and then that just wastes more time.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Um, Dude, these are some really good comments. Yes, totally, totally. Yeah, so for those like Rachel, right? So like for those who are currently with firms whose pendulum is swinging back toward, all billable, is, I'm curious to know if justifying the operational savings from such software helps your firm understand the long-term gain. So to say, yep, we may have, this set of hours required for this project that we for on this project, but with successful implementation of the tool, we can cut down those project hours by 15%. We can cut down those project hours by 50%. And you can prove that on project after project. Um, so that kind of time savings in terms of justification is something that I'm curious to know if that kind of helps relieve the tension in some ways. So something to think about or comment on. And we will leave you guys with a lesson. So Talar, if anyone here right now is really struggling to roll out a tool, maybe they're in the middle of a tool rollout that's stalling, or they are about to approach this, what is your top takeaway here for them?
Yeah, I'd say put together a plan, find a leader, a champion, like Drew said in the comments, find a champion for that software and decide on a timeline and stick to it. So obviously with project work, I'd say even the comment earlier, Maya, of like, okay, this software, once we implement it, it's going to save us 15% of time on projects day to day. That's just going to continue getting more work and more time spent on projects to become more and more efficient, more billable. But you do need to dedicate the time and energy to making sure that these softwares that you're investing in are going to provide this value. So just buying softwares willy-nilly and not implementing them is not going to provide you the value and the time savings that the vendor is proposing for you. And so you do need to spend the extra amount of time to actually make sure that it is implemented and enabled across your entire team. So I think whenever you buy a software, just know that, okay, with this software, I'm going to probably have to dedicate a month, a few hours a week to just make sure that it is implemented in the first part of the implementation. And then once that's good to go, then you have less ongoing efforts that you need to dedicate towards that software. And then you can focus on other initiatives and other project work.
And that structure and that planning up front is key.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's continue the conversation, everyone. This was a little bit of a unique webinar for us where we talk about what happens after the contract with us is signed, because we truly believe that it's equally as important. But if you want to learn more about what we do in the first place for architecture and engineering firms, email me. My email is right there. Or hit up our website, which is just puros.com. And we look forward to chatting with you all soon. And of course, if you have any questions, happy to answer those. All right, everybody. Thanks for engaging and have a wonderful Thursday. See ya. Bye, Talar.
Thank you, everyone.